For an under 30 spotlight conversation, please welcome Christian FACEY, co-founder and CEO, AudioMob. Wilfred Obeng, co-founder and CTO, AudioMob. And interviewer Kristen Stoller, deputy editor, business and consumer, Forbes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here today. Since we have limited time, I'm just going to dive right in. But if our audience has any questions for Wilfred or Christian, please feel free to ask in the chat. And with that, Christian, I'd love to start with you. Can you start by telling us a little bit about how and why you both founded AudioMob?
Well, thanks, Tristan. It's been great to be here. AudioMob provide non-intrusive audio ads in games, and we provide a 1,000% increase in click-through engagement to brands by letting a user listen to an audio ad and continue playing their games rather than being blocked by a video. And the way that this idea came about is that I was developing my own games. I've got previous experience as a strategist at Google, managing $100 million or so, and as a science partner at Facebook, so measuring the true value of ads between different test and control groups. And outside of work, I developed my own games, massive gamer, love it. I'm also a producer of hip hop and jazz music, so very chilled out music, the likes of Jay Dilla, Madlib, etc. I produce this and then stream it into the games that I'll make. And met Wilfred at a Google Christmas party many, many years ago. We became friends and we started, doing research together. And we suddenly thought that an audio ad would be great. So why not, why block a user with another video ad when you could use an audio ad? And then we realized that the whole ecosystem, the whole infrastructure didn't exist, because every audio ad you've ever heard of has been in Spotify or radio, etc. And that's when we knew there was a potential billion-dollar idea, and we left our companies to pursue it.
That's really cool. Yeah, I've always listened to Spotify when I game with my brother, but I've never actually thought of putting it together. So that's brilliant.
Thank you.
So how exactly do you make money? Can you explain the business model to me a bit?
Yeah, it's typical of a advertising network. So a CPM, a cost per 1,000 impressions or 1,000, listens in this case. We would take a percentage cut, like a typical video ad network would. So it's a very, it's actually a simple model compared to how complex the product is.
Excellent. That's interesting. Now I'm going to jump over to you, Wilfred, because I am very curious about how exactly the technology behind this works so that you're able to play games while also hearing ads. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it took a bit of not even a bit of a lot of R&D work during a pandemic to kind of get to the crux and the bottom of this. So what we're doing is we're taking some of the existing technologies and building upon them. So stuff that we're kind of familiar and used to, stuff like streaming music and having audio ads being placed with them, with the likes of Spotify, and also podcasting. But it's very different now placing those audio ads into games, into a kind of dynamic, fast-paced moving environment. So that took a lot of R&D work in terms of being able to make those advertising calls into the games, but then also trigger stuff for the game developer to be able to reward the user for a particular action and whatever they were doing within the game. And then also doing stuff like volume detection, which is something that we are the only people in the industry doing. So we'll actually incentivize the user to keep their volume up, because we can take away the reward if they don't keep their volume above a 30% threshold. So makes it fair for the advertisers to make sure that their ad is heard, but also incentivizes the user as well.
That's fascinating. I like the gamification aspect of that. That's really cool. And I know a big topic, especially in the past week, has been, with all the Spotify year in review and all the data that they're tracking, how do you make sure there's privacy around this user data that you collect?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for us, privacy is something that we take very seriously, and we want to put privacy first because we are very aware of the implications of when you use hyper-targeted advertising and all of the recent issues that I've come across with other advertising companies. So we took a privacy-first stance where the first point of call is contextual targeting. So we use stuff like the game's genre as a way of targeting a user, rather than using really hyper-targeted stuff like you just looked at a bunch of Jordan ads, or you just looked at Fenty makeup, and then you're immediately getting targeted immediately afterwards. So we are using contextual targeting, and we also remove all of our serving logs. So any ads that have been served to us within 90-day period, just to make sure we're on like the real cutting edge of making sure that we're only keeping what's necessary and not using user data or exploiting user data in any way as well. So we've engineered first for privacy, given all of the recent issues with hyper-targeted targeting and IDFA and other things that have been introduced into the industry.
Oh, good. That's good to know. And this is a question that could go to both of you, and maybe Christian, you want to start first. But what exactly do you think your company AudioMob means for the future of marketing? Where do you think we'll see this space going because of what you've done?
So, I mean, again, it's a testament to our recent fundraising round. We raised $14 million at $110 million valuation because we are creating new price-efficient, non-intrusive entry points into gaming. Gaming is the fastest growing and largest digital medium on the planet. Within every demographic segment, whether it's over 65-year-olds or 18 to 24-year-olds, everyone is playing games more often than not. So rather than paying a $40 to $80 CPM for a video, you now have a more price-efficient entry point for brands to now start spending their brand dollars where all the eyes and ears are within the mobile gaming space. And to give you an example in terms of how this product technically works, we're pioneers of what we call next-generation contextual signals, what we call audio intent signals. So if you're playing a game, you're highly engaged in that game, and you hear an audio ad and you decide not to mute or close the audio ad or listen to a certain quartile of the ad and then click through, these are the kinds of signals that we analyze to gauge true intent. If you click through an audio ad, it means that you're more engaged with that ad at that point in time rather than the game you're playing. And these are the kinds of new signals that we help brands take advantage of so they can actually send adverts of value to the right customer in a privacy compliant way.
Interesting. And what do the brands think of all this? What is the response you both get from your customers?
We have customers under every single vertical, whether it's the largest laptop or chip processors, or whether it's the largest nappy or diaper brands. We're all seeing anywhere above 1,000 to 2,000% increase in click-through engagement. Every case study we've done across every brand has been groundbreaking from a brand KPI standpoint, ad recall, etc. So the feedback's been phenomenal.
Oh, excellent. And Wilfred, wanted to toss that one over to you too. What do you think, AudioMob means for the future of the space and marketing?
Yeah, I think it means a new view on how advertising can be done, because there's two main things here that we're not interrupting the user, so we're allowing them to continue to play the game or the primary cause of what they want to do. So you're therefore fixing retention issues that a lot of gamers have. But I think on the other side, we're also respecting their privacy. So it's twofold, I would say, in terms of the benefits to the industry as a whole in the future in terms of where we're going. And we've already seen this with the likes of Sundar from Google mentioning that contextual advertising is probably a way that they will need to go as well. So we're seeing that this is the way the industry is moving. And then you also have the likes of Apple with IDFA. And bringing in the idea that giving the user a choice and making the user a bit more informed. And then you're then seeing that with legislation, with GDPR, CCPA, and other legislation that's also going to be introduced in countries such as like Kenya, and also a lot of Asian countries as well. So I think we're seeing that massive sway of user consciousness around their data. And I think rightfully so. I think for a long time, they haven't really had that opportunity to actually see what's going on and why they actually see these ads. And I think those two things will kind of be revolutionary in terms of being able to really help the user engage in ads in a more positive way.
Absolutely, yeah. And Christian hinted at this earlier, so I want to circle back so it doesn't get lost. But you just raised a new $14 million funding round last month. Congratulations, that's very exciting. What's next for your company? Do you have any plans for what you're going to do with this, Christian?
Yeah, it's going to be a good Christmas. In all seriousness, we are concentrating on a global expansion. So we started in the Middle East. We're looking at Central Europe, Canada, and the US. So global office expansion. And we are aggressively hiring the very best minds in the industry across gaming, audio, non-programmatic and programmatic advertising. And we'll be doubling in size over the next 7 months.
Oh, amazing. Wilfred, anything else you have to add there in terms of tech?
Yeah, in terms of tech, I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities. Christian mentioned the expansion in Abu Dhabi, and that's going to be our Moonshots lab. So we also going to have an office in the States, which will be more sales focused. But I think something that is really interesting is actually some of the experimental audio tech we're looking at. So we don't want to be seen as just audio ads in games, but more seeing it as audio opportunities within mobile games and apps. So things like voice synthesis, things like being able to stream music into games. And these are the kind of things that we want to start exploring a bit further and actually doing a bit more interesting things where you merge the two worlds of mobile and audio.
Well, I will anxiously await the music. But until then, we actually had an audience question I think relates to this. So one of our eager audience members said they already went to your website while you guys were talking and found a wait list. When do you launch?
Great question. So, Christian, do you want to take on the commercial side?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have launched a fully deployable product. Our advertising platform can access 1.5 billion players around the globe. The reason that we needed to raise is that we needed to expand the team, and we utilized a wait list in order to manage demand, because it's very, very important to us, no matter how much business comes to us at any one point in time, that we service our clients correctly to the best of our ability. So the wait list is a way for us to help us achieve that goal.
Makes sense. Now, I'm just thinking, because there's a waitlist, and I know there's been such a boost in gaming thanks to the pandemic, helping us all out with that. Has the pandemic helped boost your business at all? Or tell me about how the past year and a half has been for you guys.
Yeah, so from a general perspective, 2020 was a very interesting year where we had to learn how to pivot in arguably the most negative economic times in at least 50 years. And what we noticed is that there was a drop in ad spend across most verticals outside of media and entertainment, etc., across Q2 and Q3, and then there was a sharp increase. But then on the gaming side of the coin, game developers that had already established themselves and had games that had already launched experienced a massive increase in the amount of users, and there wasn't a proportionate increase in the amount of ad spend going into those spaces. Now, as a younger startup back then, we were scheduled to integrate into a number of smaller games. Now, with smaller studios, they had to pivot the way that they would release games. And there was delays across the board. There were less games released in 2020 than actually in 2012. So in a sense, the sentiment behind the increase in gaming encouraged us to actually go and raise an extra $1 million throughout the whole of the pandemic and make a very aggressive R&D play, which now has paid off in spades. So it's a double-edged sword. There was a lot of learning. We are certainly a stronger company and better founders for learning how to scale through such times. But overall, it was beneficial for the company, hence the significant raise that we've been able to achieve.
Yeah, excellent, great, definitely a great learning experience for young founders. And with that, I'd like to end on one thing I want to ask both of you. What piece of advice would you give for other young founders or would-be founders in the marketing space? And Wilfred, let's start with you.
Oh, I think my first piece of advice is do not just start, I always say this to people. I definitely say have a plan. Definitely start with something small and scrappy. Do your market research, even if it's market research using something like Instagram polls or Twitter polls. It's still a form of early market research, and then build something and test to see if people will actually be interested.
That is a great idea. And Christian, what about you?
I would say adopt a concept of egoless learning. So, as a founder that has just raised a couple of $1 million or attempting to raise a couple of $1 million, it's okay not to know everything. You won't be the best founder or CEO in the beginning. What's very important is to be very conscious of what you don't know, being open to learning the unknown unknowns, what you don't know yet. And that will help you set almost your own yardstick, so you know what you need to do in order to achieve that goal. But taking ego out of it and being susceptible to learnings from different people, different walks of life, learning how to learn, that is absolutely essential to scale in any situation.
Excellent advice. Perfect. Thank you both so much for being here. We're unfortunately at time, but Wilfred, Christian, this has been so fascinating to learn about both of you and your company. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much.